When the road ahead seems shorter and the past is gaining ground, don't you freak out or fall in love. Let laughter be the sound. Why the hell not? If fun's not in your plan, laugh your way out, take a stand. Live life while you can. Laugh your way out. Don't let fear take control. Freak out. Remember, laughter saves your soul. Laugh your way out. Find the joy in every day. If you can't have fun, what's the point anyway? Kick the sand and...
Hello.
Hey.
Hey. How's it going?
Oh my God, it's going.
Is it just awful? I'm sorry.
It could be worse. I mean, honestly, like let's all be honest. Like it could be worse, but Mr. Squid
Right.
just dropped $900 on a generator. So yeah,
They're not
I've
cheap.
never been the grifty type, but yeah. If anybody wants to send me that breadstick money,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, thank you for hopping on with me. I've had this, getting a delay in my audio.
it's weird.
Well, I have to be able to hear you. So how do I do this without?
It could be my internet because I'm on hotel Wi-Fi, so not the most reliable.
Hey, chat. Is it? Do we have an echo or a delay? Anyone? Hey, Zach, Heidi, Rogue, Christine. Okay, we sound fine. Okay, so I'll just be a little crazy in my ear. Anywho, so you guys are safe and sound?
Yeah, it's fun. People don't have food. People don't have like water because I have a feeling people just took it as, because even Mr. Squid was like, well, we're not in the cone. Well, we're not in the cone. So I have a feeling people were like, it's going to lose strength. We're not in the cone. We'll be fine. And like, it didn't really turn out that way. Like, my town doesn't even have cell phone service. So I was literally off the grid for 14 hours yesterday.
That is no bueno.
It's the worst storm I've ever seen. Like, I've never
bad.
seen
So was it two fronts coming together, or did it whip around?
It whipped around, but it was two low pressure systems that joined together.
Wow.
So between that, having to buy a generator, having to pay for a hotel room, Mr. Squid hitting the deer the morning before, like it's just one thing after another that just keeps up the and hotel rooms when you're just booking a hotel room on average, say $100 a room or $100 a night. When you're fleeing from a hurricane or you're displaced because of a hurricane, that $100 a night is no longer $100 a night. Yeah. It's almost double that.
Right.
So it's it's going to be an interesting time for the next few weeks. So,
well, I hope they're sending some crew down to help.
I talked to my dad shortly before I hopped on here, and he works for the power company up in Wisconsin, and they've sent crews down.
Yeah.
So it's just there's so many lines that need to be replaced. Like my neighborhood was pretty much blocked in by either trees in the middle of the road or power lines. It was like just can't get around it.
Ugh. Well, I appreciate you coming on to kind of go over this with me. I got the report the other day, and I didn't I haven't read the actual testimonies yet because I've figured, maybe let chat decide which ones they want to hear about, but I can go over the key failings that they found, um, and go from there. What do you think?
That works for me.
Okay. Hey, General. Welcome.
Hey, General.
Okay. Let's see. So it said the key findings of failures include Secret Service failed to clearly. I'm going to take this out of my ear for a second. This is driving me crazy. Secret Service failed to clearly define responsibilities for planning and security at the July 13th rally. Well, I think we know that. The Secret Service advanced leads told the committee that plan security decisions were made jointly with no specific individual responsible for approval. Which I'm sorry. Why? Does that make sense? I mean, you're former military.
Yeah.
Uh,
Nothing makes sense.
yeah. I mean, there's usually somebody you report to.
Yeah, there's usually a chain of command. And it seemed like, from what that statement told me, is that if you went to person A, person B says person B was in charge, person B says person C was in charge, person C says person A was in charge, and nobody knows what the heck is going on.
Right.
That's what that phrase sounded like to me.
Right. There's some of these are like stick out to me as really bad. Could I do this again? Okay. Secret Service failed to ensure the AGR building was effectively covered. Secret Service identified the AGR building as a concern due to the line of sight from the roof to the stage, but did not take steps to ensure sufficient security measures were in place. Secret Service knew that local snipers planned to set up inside the AGR building. Inside.
Yeah.
And Secret Service did not express objections or concerns about that placement. Secret Service personnel, including the Secret Service counter sniper team leader, did not enter the AGR building or go onto the roof prior to the shooting. One Secret Service counter sniper team, whose responsibility included scanning the area around the AGR building for threats, had an obstructed view of the AGR roof. Okay.
It sounds like from the very start that.
I'm sorry?
It sounded like from the very start, like these Secret Service agents had never actually done this before. Like, nobody was competent.
Well, I mean, I'm not a sniper, so I don't really know how to, respond to that. But my common sense tells me if you can't see a vulnerability, move.
That
until you can.
I mean,
it's like taking
pictures to figure that one out. But apparently,
right, it's like taking pictures of groups. If you can't see the camera can't see you. Right?
Big shock there.
Right.
Yeah. Fundayan.
Hey, Condon.
Fundayan. They were not expecting anybody to try anything.
Right. Okay. Secret Service failed to effectively coordinate with state and local law enforcement. Secret Service did not give state or local partners any specific instructions for covering the AGR building, including the positioning of local snipers. Secret Service did not adequately consider state and local law enforcement operational plans. Communications at the July 13th rally were siloed, and Secret Service did not ensure it could share information with local law enforcement partners in real time.
And we heard that from the secrets or the local law enforcement who were interviewed that said they had texted Secret Service and never heard anything back or never
got a response.
Right. Like, sounds like Secret Service didn't want to communicate with anybody.
Right.
It's just, there's such catastrophic failures that from like a basic security level, that a freaking security guard at like a Walmart would know.
Right.
No
Right.
offense to a security guard.
A greeter. A greeter at Walmart is like what George Webb likes to say. A Walmart greeter could have done a better job.
That is true. Like,
I mean, just deterring somebody.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not always about actively doing something. It's about being there to deter somebody from doing something.
Exactly. A presence. Anybody.
It's like, for example, I hate to bring this up, but like concealed carry. You don't go out intending to use your concealed carry. Your concealed carry and having the ability to conceal carry is a deterrent to try to stop anybody from doing anything because they don't know what you may or may not have or may not do. So it's not so much to like do anything. It's just deter people from even thinking about it.
I would think.
I don't know. It just seems like this guy had some insider knowledge that this was a crappy team.
It gets worse.
Oh, it gets worse.
It gets worse.
I should have known.
Yep. Out again. Secret Service failed to provide resources for the July 13th rally that could have enhanced security. Secret Service denied specific requests for additional counter unmanned aircraft systems capability and a counter assault team liaison. The Secret Service counter surveillance unit, which could have helped patrol the outer perimeter that included the AGR building, was not requested by Secret Service advance leads. Now, again, I don't know what all of that, means, but it sounds like it's something that they should have done.
Yeah, I mean,
I know what I know they wanted the drone, counter assault team liaison. So that would be a person to communicate back and forth. Is that that's what I was guy, right?
Yeah, the liaison would be like the person in charge of discussing things between agencies. So,
I got to figure out how to do all of this. I can't read, so I got to move stuff around. Let me get over here. Look at some comments. I think where they find looks like a wall.
Oh, and we may get interrupted occasionally or once by housekeeping because they still haven't come in. So, if that happens, I'll just mute my audio and stop my camera for a minute. So, interesting from. Oh, so weird. Yeah.
Yeah. An insane report.
And the relevant information is on page 6,642, paragraph 3.
But it's in 0.8 font.
Like, I didn't bring my glasses because,
Robert,
it's not to change the subject back to me, but Mr. Squid had to drive 30, 40 minutes from our house just to be able to book a hotel room. So I was packing when he came back, and he came back like we got to go now. And it's like 5 minutes from now. It's like, it's not going to make any difference. But I sent him a list of things to come back to or bring back with him when he comes back. Yeah, 13 subs.
Okay.
That's when you'll get the name of who they're blaming. One time, that paragraph, and that person will get a promotion.
Oh yeah, all of these testimonies are redacted, which I understand that. I really do. All right, I'm gonna pull this out so I can not hear myself read. Secret Service failed to communicate information about the suspicious person to key personnel and failed to take action to ensure the safety of former President Trump. At approximately 5:44, Secret Service personnel were notified that local law enforcement observed a suspicious person with a rangefinder near the AGR building. By 5:52 p.m., at least 8 Secret Service personnel had been informed. Approximately 2 minutes before shots were fired, the Secret Service security room, located on the rally grounds, was told that there was an individual on the roof of the AGR building. Shortly before shots were fired, a Secret Service counter sniper observed local officers running towards the AGR building with guns drawn. So this
I'm pretty sure one
failure
of the
to communicate sounds like a failure to listen.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure one of the people that were saying that there was somebody on the roof, if they would have been armed, if they would have been like just a concealed carry person, they could have taken him out long before the Secret Service ever even tried to do anything. Like,
Yeah.
it sounded like they knew and they just didn't care.
Right.
Which to me says conspiracy. Because you can't be that educated and that trained and be that stupid.
I mean, it's just the narrative that there was a communication issue. It wasn't true. I mean,
Sounds like
right out the chute.
If it was a failure to communicate, it was the egos of Secret Service not wanting to believe what they were being told. Because they're the Secret Service. None of this ever should happen on their watch. So they're the best trained people that we've got. And this can't possibly be happening, instead of just taking it like it, Ugh. Can you see the steam coming out of my ears?
Hey, John.
Hey, John. Oh. Yeah. All Secret Service agents should be able to holster and unholster their weapons in a combat scenario. Because, I mean, it's not that okay, in all fairness, it's not that she doesn't know how to holster her weapon. It's just under stress. You train like you fight. And if you've never trained under a stressful situation, you're never going to be able to do things accurately in a stressful situation. So when she was in a stressful situation, her anxiety took over and she forgot how to do basic tasks. Like your motor function doesn't work properly when you're stressed.
Like holstering your gun.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it was not necessarily her fault. And like when people make fun of her, it's like, yeah, it looks stupid, but like there's a fight or flight thing, and when your brain goes into fight mode, things get focused.
Oh, sure. Like time slows down, and yeah.
Well, the brain turns off processes that are not necessary for that specific task. So if you haven't trained doing something in a combat scenario or a real life, like active shooter, somebody shooting live bullets, they might be shooting live bullets over your head,
right?
But it's still that same stress. Your body hasn't trained how to do those things when your brain is in fight or flight mode. That's just my medical and anatomical, anatomy and physiology background. Like I have family members that are smart as hell, but when they get in a stressful situation, they can barely remember their own damn name and address. Like it's not that they're stupid or that they can't do things. It's like when you get stressed, your brain narrows its focus to what's going to keep you alive, and holstering your gun's not necessarily a life or death thing. It should be, but it's not. Unless you've trained it. Oh, boy.
Ruh-roh.
Oh, John.
Oh, the lady got promoted. Okay, I'm going to move along here.
Yeah.
Secret Service counter-drone system experienced technical problems that left it inoperable for hours. With no backup system, the Secret Service agent responsible for overseeing the CUAS capabilities at the July 13th rally called a toll-free 888 tech support hotline to start troubleshooting with the company, which took several hours. That agent had only 3 months of experience working with that equipment and lacked knowledge about it. Huh. Okay. This is getting into that area where my little knowledge of my combat zone is when I'm at a trade show and it's live and you've got people presenting and you've got stuff going on. I mean, like I have backup of everything. I mean, everything. Paper clips, safety pins, duct tape, Velcro, cables, batteries. I mean, just you have to have everything just in case there's a breakdown and somebody's got to run that equipment wherever it's needed. Why can't you have 2 drones? I mean, in the big scheme of things, they're not that expensive. Like, you can get a decent drone.
I mean, honestly, you could have the military grade one, which just means Amazon, but twice as expensive. And then an Amazon one. Like, you don't need the second one to be like, the best. You just need it to, and you can buy infrared drones on Amazon for like $100.
Well, yeah, you can go to Best Buy, and I think there's a really great one that's $800. I mean, that's not extremely expensive when you're talking about a government agency.
Yeah, especially with all the taxes we pay, but I'm not getting into that.
Let's see, 90 days working with a piece of equipment and you should be able to handle it. It sounds like poor training. I agree.
And if the person tells you, I don't feel comfortable, because if they have like 60 days of training, let's say, and at the end of those 60 days, he says, I don't feel comfortable, either give him more training or reassign him.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, don't, and if the person was like, I feel fine and lied, then he should be dealt with. Because there's some sort of not making any sense here.
And don't worry, it gets worse.
And there's more.
Several Secret Service officials reported experiencing technical problems with their radios at the rally and told the committee such problems are common for Secret Service. A Secret Service Hercules 1 counter sniper was offered a local radio on July 13th, but said he did not have time to pick it up because he was occupied fixing technical problems with his Secret Service radio. In addition, at the Pittsburgh airport, before the motorcade left for the rally, Secret Service special agent in charge of the Pittsburgh field office gave the lead agent his radio because the lead agent's radio was not working. Thoughts?
Where'd they get these radios? Radio Shack?
What I'm hearing is that the lead field office agent, special agent, didn't think it was important to be able to communicate with the team, and he gave his radio away.
That's, yeah. Excuses.
Right. And so here we've got problems with the drones, problems with the radio.
Did it say what the problem with the drone was?
I don't know. Maybe in the testimony it will be specific. I'm just going over the summary right now.
Okay.
And pick out whose testimony we want to look at because there's
so many.
They're long. Well, they're just really long. And I know we'll be here for 2 days if we were trying to read it. So I thought that was interesting. The way I read that, somebody was tinkering with the toys. That's
everything you're reading. Like, I don't ever want to be that conspiracy theorist, but at the same time, it's like, how can you not? There's so many breakdowns that I'm pretty sure, like, a high school student, if you ask a high school student to secure a perimeter, I'm pretty sure they could do a better job. So, drones by Temu, the Chinese drones.
Yep, drones and radios.
Seems
Well,
like
and
everything
yeah.
was denied.
Well, and that's the thing. If they were asking for more drones, did they know their drones were faulty? I mean,
John's got a really good point.
eight-year-olds notoriously bad liars. Right.
It just seems like yet again they know the reason, they know the cause, but this is their way of skirting accountability.
Yeah. Okay, I'll get back over here. Oh, I don't want to read the recommendations because I think any of us could figure out what they're recommending they do. It's kind of, we've already said that. But
Yeah.
let me get
everything we've said over the last 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to bring this document up. Oh God, I can't see. Okay, there it is. All right. Now where'd I put it?
I have to fix this problem. I will be back in a hot second.
You go for it. Yeah. So this, we're going to look at, what is this one? I don't know if we want to go over the complete breakdown of I already went over the key points. I guess I could get to some of this. Okay. I'm going to take this out. On July 13th, 2024, Thomas Matthew Crooks bought 50 rounds of ammunition on his way to Butler, Pennsylvania, drove to former President Donald Trump's campaign rally at the Butler Farm Show grounds, and climbed onto the roof of the American Glass Research Building less than 200 yards away from where the former president was speaking, where at 6:11 p.m., he fired 8 rounds from an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, killing 1 person and injuring 3 others, including the former president. That day, he was able to fly a drone 200 yards from the site, use a rangefinder capable of gauging the distance to the former president less than an hour before he began speaking, and bring 2 explosive devices within proximity of the site of the rally. The United States Secret Service planning, communications, intelligence sharing, and related security failures in advance of and during July 13th directly contributed to Crook's ability to carry out the assassination attempt and kill and injure people in Butler, PA that day. Okay, so there's some confirmations, I think, there. The ammunition was bought that day. Like the drones confirmed and the 2 explosive devices.
I don't know what's happening here. She'll run up to me to get the water. I'll hand it to her. She'll shake her head no, run into the bathroom and start screaming.
Oh, maybe she wants something in there.
She's getting stir crazy.
Yeah. Do you need to go address that?
Real quick.
Okay. So I'll get over here again. This mouse on 2 screens is hard. Let's see. Right. So, poorly trained people, but to me, I don't really like coincidences that both things were having an issue. It's possible, I guess. True. Okay. Get over here. Oh God, this echo. On July 30th, 2024, Ronald L. Rowe Jr., the acting director of the Secret Service, testified in joint hearing before the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, the HSGAC. HSCAC. Can't even have a fun little word for that. And Judiciary Committee that attempted assassination was a failure on multiple levels. Acting Director Rowe testified before committees that he has since initiated several reforms to address clear deficiencies on how Secret Service provides security for its protectees. During the July 30th hearing, Acting Director Rowe acknowledged Secret Service responsibility for protecting former President Trump. In a series of transcribed interviews conducted by HSGAC and the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, key Secret Service personnel responsible for planning, coordinating, communicating, and securing the Butler, PA rally on July 13th declined to acknowledge individual areas of responsibility for planning or security as having contributed to the failure to prevent the shooting that day, even when, as an agency, the Secret Service has acknowledged ultimate responsibility for the failure to prevent the former president of the United States from being shot. Refused.
I just, I think of this as the same thing of the Coast Guard doing the hearings on the Titan submersible thing. We found out all this information, most of which we already had an idea about, but what is actually going to change? I don't think anything's going to, they took responsibility, but who's going to get fired?
Right.
I know the what's her name stepped down, but but what is actually going to change? Because at the end of the day, yes, she's the highest person, but it's not necessarily her responsibility to go to every single agent when you have that many agents and ask them questions. She doesn't have time for that. Her job is politics. Her job is not training. So the head of the Secret Service, the head of the FBI, their whole job is politics. Getting the money that they need to fund things. Their job is not to do the day-to-day operations or training. So even though she stepped down, is anything actually going to change? Are the people responsible for not communicating going to get fired? Probably not.
Right.
So it's this is all well good, but I don't
know.
Yeah.
So I have pulled up the special agent in charge of the Pittsburgh field office. Is there any other testimony somebody else would prefer to look at? Let me see if I can pull up the list.
There is.
Okay, so we have Secret Service Assistant Director for the Office of Protective Operations, Secret Service Counter Sniper Team Lead, Secret Service Lead Advance Agent, Secret Service Special Agent in charge of the Pittsburgh Field Office, Secret Service Site Agent, Secret Service Site Counterpart, Secret Service Counter Unmanned Aerial Systems Advanced Lead, and Secret Service Hercules 2 Counter Sniper. So those are the testimonies that are available. Does anybody want to chime in, see which one they want to read?
The Counter Sniper Team Lead might be a good one, because at the end of the day, they're the one who had the ultimate power to stop him.
Right.
But
in general, I would be great if you were a bionic mod. That would be great. I'm sure your surgery is going to be fantastic.
Oh yeah, it'll make you feel so much better.
I wonder if I turn this off, it'll stop echoing. Wait, that worked.
What'd you
Apparently,
turn up?
Stream Deck. I guess it was listening too. I don't know.
Hey, King Bob.
Hey, King Bob. So, I guess I haven't seen anybody's chime in. Give it another second. Let me see. Okay, so you said you wanted to do the counter sniper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Heidi.
Download this. Sorry, guys. Give me a second.
These are kind of long. Like the one I have open is 167 pages. So
Right. There's a lot of lead in, I think, on some of these.
yeah. So when it's opening, it kind of takes just a tad bit of time. I have my phone open.
What just happened? Okay, that's the right one. Can y'all see that? Can you read it?
Yeah.
Okay. Scroll through here. Gosh, scroll
There we
feature
go.
doesn't really work that well. Where's the page? Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is
Let me
all
hit
going to,
my screen
actual
bigger.
names will be redacted. I don't think we need to go through all of that. I mean, I don't really care about everybody chiming in on
Yeah.
behalf of the witness. Lawyers, blah, 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 whatever. Okay.
Yeah. We all know there's lawyers there. Nobody's talked to without a lawyer present. Everybody's got
Right.
their people.
All the committee members, all the exhibits. Okay.
Who do you want to be?
It's up to you.
I'll be the committee majority.
Okay.
You can do the interesting witness testimony because this was your idea. And
Okay. Yeah, this is a cold read. Haven't read any of this, so I have no idea what's going to be said.
I got sent a couple of them this morning, but I'm not sure this one was it. So, okay, good afternoon. This is transcribed interview of U.S. Secret Service Special Agent Redacted being conducted by the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs and the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. This interview was requested by Committee Chairman Gary Peters, Ranking Member Rand Paul, as well as Subcommittee Chairman Richard Blumenthal and Ranking Member Ron Johnson. Hey, I voted for him. This is part of the committee's investigation on July 13th, 2024 assassination attempt on former President Trump and U.S. Secret Service planning in advance of and response related to the events in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th, 2024. Can you scroll? Yeah, there you go.
Ah, is that too far? Like, it is.
On July 25th, 2024, Chairman Peters, Blumenthal, and Ranking Member Paul and Johnson requested voluntary transcribed interviews with the U.S. Secret Service personnel, including redacted. We will provide introductions and explain how today's proceedings will go. So could you please state your name and current position?
Redacted. Good afternoon. My name is Redacted, and I'm with the United States Secret Service, part of the Uniform Division Counter Sniper Team.
Thank you. I'd ask now that your counsel introduces themselves.
Mr. Redacted. This is going to be fun. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Officer Technician Redacted, and with me are personnel from my office, to your left and to the back, Redacted. He is an investigator with my firm, and then to his left, Redacted, a legal assistant with my firm as well. Thank you. Mr. Redacted, Deputy Chief Counsel, United States Secret Service. Mrs. Redacted, I guess this is another lawyer, Oversight Counsel, DHS Office and General Counsel.
Thank you. As I mentioned, there will be 4 offices conducting this interview today, and we will introduce ourselves now so that you know who the individuals are. But we're not going to.
Nobody else.
My name again, Redacted. I'm Chief Counsel, Investigative Counsel for Chairman Gary Peters, the majority staff, and the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. I am joined today by my colleagues, Redacted, Senior Investigator for the majority on the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, and Redacted, Deputy Chief Counsel for the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee.
Yeah, that's the next one.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Right there?
Yep.
All right. Hello. Thank you for coming in. My name is Redacted, Chief Counsel for Ranking Member Paul and the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Minority. I am joined by my colleagues.
You want to skip all of these? I mean, we're not going to learn anything from it.
Yeah.
Chat, we're skipping. This will go on forever.
Yeah.
Okay, reporter.
All right. This interview right there should work. This interview is unclassified, so if the questions call for any information that you know to be implicate classified information, please state for the record that the question has implicated classified information. Once you have clarified to the extent possible, please respond with as much publicly available unclassified information as you are able to do so to be responsive to the question. Should the need arise, we have the ability to participate in a classified setting and to make accommodations to do so, and we will do so if necessary here. Do you understand?
Yes.
It is the committee's practice to honor valid common law privileges and claims to accommodate to witnesses and his counsel when those claims are made in good faith and are accompanied by sufficiently detailed explanation so that the committee can evaluate the claim. And when deciding whether to honor the privilege, the committee will weigh its need for this information against a legitimate basis for withholding it. The interview today is occurring without prejudice to any future discussions of the committee, and we reserve the right to request your participation in a future interview if necessary. If you need to take a break, we will be happy to do so. Our plan is to try and break on the hour. To try and break every hour so that you have an opportunity to use the restroom and get a quick drink if need be. But if you have questions or you need a break, please let us know and we'll be happy to accommodate. If you have any questions about what we are asking, if we ask a compound question, if it's not understandable, please just let us know you need us to clarify and we'll be happy to do so. We'll try and ask a question in a more detailed way. You are required to answer questions before Congress truthfully. Do you understand?
Yes, and I'd like to interject. They say you're required, but there's no repercussions if you lie to Congress. Like anybody can lie to Congress. Like
and you would think of all
you would think
perjury,
a higher standard.
Yeah, it's just one of those there's never any, especially after 2020. There's never any consequences for lying.
Right.
We're all taught as kids not to lie because there are consequences, but there's not any.
Right. Okay, so witnesses, yes.
This also applies to the questions posed by congressional staff in this interview today. Specifically, 18 U.S. Code 1001 makes it a crime to make any material false, fictitious, or fraudulent statements or representations in the course of a congressional investigation. And this statute applies to your statements here today. Do you understand?
Yes.
We would ask that you not speak about what we discuss in this interview with anyone outside of this room in order for us to preserve the integrity of our investigation. And we would ask that you not remove or make any copies of the photographs or exhibits that you will be shown today. Do you understand?
Yes.
We will provide your counsel with a copy of the transcript of this interview and the errata sheet to ensure that we have an accurate record today. Before we begin, do you have any questions about what I've relayed?
No.
So at this time, we would like to invite you or your counsel or both to provide any opening statements or information you would like to provide based on the topics we've said we want to discuss today. And then
Mr. Counsel, thank you. Again, Majority Leader, again, for the record, Witness Counsel, I would like to say we are honored to be here today to assist this committee effort moving forward. And we will, and my client will, fulfill his obligations to share with you the information within his purview. That is certainly truthful, and I hope will be an aid to you. But I'd like to stress that my client was a member of Hercules 2 team on site. And I am aware you have information, and now I wanted to narrow that down for you so you understand his role in somewhat of a narrow terms on the day of the event. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to have office technician witness start to give you an overview. I thought the logical place to start would be he'll tell you when he got notified of this detail, traveled to PA and took place in Butler, etc. That way, I think I might be more efficient for some of the questions. Okay. It's like that sentence didn't read right.
somebody either.
Yeah, maybe it was a stammer. Questions that I'm sure you already have written out that you may not need to ask. And so we'd like to take it in that fashion, and we're certainly prepared to answer the follow-up questions and the bull questions, if you will. Pardon that word. Thank you.
I think it was supposed to be questions.
Throwing me curveballs over here. Pardon that word, but the direct questions, if you will, that need to be answered. So with that, I turn it over to Officer Technician Redacted.
Do you want me to?
Good afternoon. No, I got it. Good afternoon, everybody. I first found out that I was going to be assigned to the Donald Trump detail on the 11th when I received a welcome email from the Counter Sniper Advanced Team leader. Our instructions were to travel up on the 12th. We drove up and then met and had like a quick overview of our logistics and our plan for the next day for work on the 13th. On the 13th, we had an 11 a.m. start. We went to grab breakfast and got some food for the day. We drove to the site and we conducted what we call a walkthrough, where we walk in the footsteps of the protectee out to the stage, and we review the site in general. The team leader pointed out the locations for local assets, and he pointed out our locations for our postings. As counsel had pointed out, I was a member of Hercules 2. And I like this was no longer a member of Hercules 2.
I think it's one of those things that they got their assignment, they did their assignment, and then they go back to their normal.
Okay, so it's like a swing shit, like people rotate through.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Okay. He also pointed out where Hercules 1 was going to be posted. When we finished up with our walkthrough, we responded back to our vehicles. We got our equipment and our weapons ready, and then we made our way to our posting. When I was up on post with my partner, we noted several trees, several wood lines that blocked the 3 to 4 o'clock view of the AGR building, and we observed the crowd and the surrounding area. We received a bolo, which is a be on the lookout, and in that bolo, there were 2 photographs of an individual. I cannot recall who was the original sender of the email, but the team leader had forwarded it to all teams, all Hercules teams. Okay. That sounds like a contradiction to the findings.
Yeah.
Or does it not? Am I confused?
No, it does, because if they received a bolo, then that means they knew about the person.
Okay, so the findings did say they knew, but
Oh yeah.
I guess this is just more detailed. Gotcha. Okay. I cannot recall who was the original sender. Okay. The bolo was worded vaguely, saying that original person who saw him had lost him, and mentioned that he had a rangefinder. My partner and I continued to search and observe the site. After we were searching for several minutes, I saw 2 white vehicles pull into the AGR parking lot, but they were obscured by that tree line that I previously mentioned. And from those 2 vehicles, I saw one individual emerge from the tree line. Identified him as a police officer, and I couldn't tell why he was moving urgently, but I went over the radio with the following transmission. Security room from Hercules. Locals are working something at the 3 o'clock, approximately 200 yards out. We continued to observe. We were trying to pick up on what the locals were actually working, but we couldn't figure out. And I'd like to say that the security room repeated my message back to me, saying that they had copied. And that's when I heard the first thud and a whip-like crack. And I immediately went to my radio to say, Hercules, shots fired. And I put that radio transmission over, not knowing who was shooting or what direction they were shooting in. But I knew I needed to trigger the emergency action of the shift on the ground around the protectee. I heard more cracks. I thought that my partner was hit due to the proximity of these whip-like cracks and the impact report. Due to my position that I took on the roof, my radio antenna was pointed more towards the ground. And the way that our radios really work is when they're vertical, the radio transmission is spread horizontally. But when I am angled towards the ground, my radio transmission goes towards the ground. But that also works on the receiving end. So radio transmissions they can become spotty based on your orientation with the radio. Is that true? I mean,
it seems like it would make sense, but at the same time, shouldn't they have radios with a multi-directional antenna at this point? Like, you don't need to point your antenna. It's like rabbit ears is what he sounds like
right.
he's describing.
Right.
And
interesting.
I don't know. It just seems like in 2024 we would have better radios. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the next transmission that I heard was that a local was moving up to the AGR rooftop. And when I went over the radio to say, send them up, because I did not know who had put that radio transmission over. And as I was observing, trying to spot this local on the roof, he all of a sudden emerged from the trees that were obstructing our view, and we followed him. We were worried about a potential blue on blue incident because we knew that locals were in that area. From that point, the motorcade and the protectee had begun packing up and leaving the site for the hospital. And that's when it was determined that my partner and I would split off to go to the hospital. And when I first noticed that I did not have cell service, yikes, I tried to pull up the address of the hospital through my email, but couldn't load any emails. That's not good. Well, I mean, I guess cell service is not something they can control.
No.
Right. And then my partner and I made our way over to the hospital by driving outside of the site and pinging off of a different cell tower. As we were leaving, my partner's cell phone was pick up cell service, and he was able to navigate to the hospital, and I followed behind him. When we made it to the hospital, we began setting up a new position to cover the protectee. And while we were at the hospital, we took a position on the rooftop, and my partner and I discussed the proximity of the rounds that were being fired at the site. And I asked my partner how close he thought the rounds were to our left, and he looked at me and said, "I heard them on my right." Wow, okay. And they were approximately 6 feet between him and I when we were on the rooftop at the main site. What?
Whoop. Ooh, that's
I
close.
got goosebumps.
Ooh, yeah. I'm like, eh.
From
Yeah.
there, I don't know what LES means, redacted and redacted. And we were able to make it over to the airport to cover the protectee's return to, I think it was Bedminster, but his flight out. Mr. Counsel, Agency Counsel, Deputy Chief Counsel, just for the record, the Secret Service and Department of Homeland Security have made available to the committee, consistent with requests from the chairman, information records that would not be publicly released. This includes information and records are covered under the Privacy Act personnel and other personal privacy information for official use only, intelligence, and law enforcement sensitive records. While the Secret Service and the department have made this information and records available to the committee, we continue to assert that such information and any discussion of such information is not intended for public disclosure. Of course. Rats.
I mean, I can kind of see where they're coming from with that. That
No, I
doesn't mean
understand. I get that.
I don't like
do.
it.
I'd still like for them to accidentally include something. That's me. While the Secret Service and Department have made this information and records available to the, did I already read that? Yep. The Secret Service and the Department are not waiving any protections, and for the purpose of administrative efficiency and to promote constructive dialogue during this, lost my mouse, interview, are making this assertion at the outset to preserve all assertions and protection from the public release or disclosure of information or records used or discussed during this transcribed interview. The transcript and any attachments are protected from dissemination to the same extent as the documents and information they are based on. Please consult with the Secret Service and the Department prior to any public release or disclosure. The Secret Service and the Department have not consented to and were assured that there would not be any audio or video recordings of this interview. The agencies understand the interview will be transcribed by a court reporter. Thank you very much. Mr. Counsel and Committee Majority, if I may be heard. On that topic, I just want the record to reflect that in the preliminary remarks you gave, you indicated our appearance here today was voluntary. While I said we're honored to be here and assist, I do want the record to be clear that at my insistence and request, the service issued an order compelling my client to be here today. And that is an essential component of what I do. This is in no way a reflection on his unwillingness to participate and cooperate with the committee, but I want the record to be clear that he is compelled to be here by the service, but that does not in any way alter the answers you will receive.
Thank you both. With respect to the recordings, my understanding is that the only recording will be of the transcribed interview itself. I'll just ask each of our offices here to confirm there are no other recordings. They have done so. With respect to any markings or anything Department of Counsel may determine requires any notation, be it law enforcement, sensitive, or otherwise, we would invite you to make any markings you deem appropriate or to do so with respect to any testimony. We will take that into consideration as we assess the information we receive and as we make decisions on anything the committee will do with the information it learns today in the course of its investigation.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I kind of like, you can kind of put together, words that you think, the committee will be bound, however, only by Senate rules and committee rules, and we will abide by those Senate and committee rules in the furtherance of any investigation effort we do. That includes any public-facing information. The committee is going to work towards a public report. The public report will likely draw on information we learned today in this interview. However, it is a practice of this committee, and one we intend to honor here, that in advance of making any public report, if we rely on any non-public information in that report, including information we learned today, in advance of making that information public, we will first provide excerpts of any information we intend to rely on and provide counsel an opportunity to make any factual corrections.
Mr. Witness Counsel and Majority Leader, with respect to the recordings, I want to clarify from my own understanding, the recordings to which you refer, are those the inspections and integrity recordings?
I'm not sure I understand. All that I was referring to is that there's a recorder here. The sole purpose for the use of that recorder is for the court reporter to make a transcript today.
I misunderstood. I thought you were going to refer to a previous recording. I wanted to nail down what that was. Okay.
That is it?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, my name is I'm a senior investigator for Senator Peters here on the committee. Thank you for being here. Do you go by Officer Redacted? Is that how you're referred to?
Yes, that's fine. You can also call me Witness.
Okay, I appreciate it. As your attorney mentioned, the opening statement you gave. Your opening statement covered a lot of questions we want to ask, so we appreciate that. And forgive me, I might go over some things you already said, because as your attorney mentioned, we had all those questions prepared. So we really appreciate that. Can you tell me how long you've been with the Secret Service?
I was first hired by the Secret Service back in 2009, so 15 years.
And how long have you been with the counter snipers in the Secret Service?
I've been with the counter sniper team since 2017, so 7 years.
Okay, and what accounted for the years before you were with the counter snipers?
I was a firearms instructor, and I also worked at various branches to include the Vice President's residence and also the White House branch.
Okay, did you have counter sniper experience or sniper experience before the Secret Service?
I did not.
Can you walk us through the chain of command? Who do you report to? Who reports to you at these events?
My chain of command would be the supervisor who is there. We intend to put a supervisor on every trip that we have. But also the team leader who conducts the advance work would also fit into that chain of command. So typically information would go to him, the team leader, and that would be relayed to the supervisor who is on the trip, who then could relay back to DC or wherever if there was an additional supervisor on the detail.
And do you have regular team members or partners, or does it change depending on the visit or event?
It changes almost daily.
I think there's one of the problems. Just interjecting my own opinion.
Right.
Okay. And you mentioned your partner in your opening statement. Who was your partner that day at the event, at this rally?
Oops. My partner's name was Hercules 2. I lost my mouse again. Oh. Okay. Hercules 2. Yep, Hercules
And
2.
how do you spell his last name? 2. TWO.
TWO. Hercules 2.
Thank you. Can you give us a sense of your work schedule? So how do the shifts work? Are they regular? Do you have regular days off?
We have set days off, but whether or not you get those days off is up to the operational tempo.
And how much travel do you do for your job?
I'd probably say about 75%,
Do you work nights often?
50-50.
And again, is that regular? Do you know in advance when you'll be working nights?
Sometimes.
Sounds like it sucks. What was your schedule and travel like in the week leading up to July 13th, the Butler rally?
I don't recall.
Do you remember where you were in the week before the rally?
I can't recall.
That's weird. Have staffing or resources been a challenge for the Secret Service counter snipers in any way?
I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
Have the counter snipers at Secret Service
I lost my mouse again. Sorry. There.
dealt with any challenges relating to staffing or resources in staffing these events?
If I could, and I alluded to this in my opening remarks, my client has a very narrow role. He's given a specific set of tasks related to the counter sniper function. I have to question the fairness of the question because we are not here to offer a critique on the service, its funding, its mission, its allocation of resources, etc. I don't know that that's a fair question. It would be a fair question to ask how many counter snipers were there, or sorry, there were. I mean, we know there's Hercules 1 and 2, but I just don't think that's a very fair question to ask officer witness. It's out of his purview.
We'll try and ask more specific, both respect to your question and to restate ours. With respect to your own involvement as a counter sniper, have you experienced any resource strains?
I don't think so.
I appreciate it, officer witness. Can you walk us through the difference between the terms sniper and counter sniper? I guess the first question is, are you a counter sniper, not a sniper? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and you were a counter sniper at the rally in Butler.
Correct.
Can you walk us through your understanding of what the differences is between those terms?
So counter sniper is instructed professionally on how to spot snipers. So how to identify snipers and identify areas where a sniper might set up a position.
Are there any Secret Service snipers, or are they all counter snipers within the Secret Service?
All counter snipers.
Is there ever any use for law enforcement sniper at an outdoor event, or are they all, as far as you know, considered counter snipers?
We're all counter snipers.
You're not aware of any local law enforcement acting as snipers?
So there exists a nuance with the counter sniper versus sniper role, and local jurisdictions might call their counter snipers snipers, just for ease of, or they might just call them that. That might just be their name, but they are operating in a counter sniper role.
Understood. And I might use the same two terms interchangeably to refer to counter snipers. But let me know that a distinction needs to be made in your mind moving forward.
Okay.
I appreciate that. So switching to the planning for this particular rally on July 13th, it's our understanding that this was the first time the Secret Service sent counter snipers for any events other than POTUS, vice president, or an official candidate. Is that your understanding?
It's my understanding that that was the first time we were working for the Donald Trump detail.
So what events or protectees typically receive counter snipers? It is what I described, meaning president, vice president, or an official candidate.
I think it depends, but that's not my call.
Well, you've worked previous events as a counter sniper for the Secret Service before this one, right?
Correct.
And what kind of events were those? Who were the protectees generally? Like what kind of title?
All the way to like, I don't NSSEs, foreign heads of state, the vice president, the president.
Understood. And how many counter sniper teams are usually at those kind of events?
It depends on the size of the event.
Is LES common? LES teams common?
Sometimes, yes.
Sorry, I just got a text from Mr. Squid.
Oh. Do you need to
Uh,
address that?
No, he's just telling me things that he's seen on the road and stuff because he's headed back to our house.
Oh.
Yeah, he got a generator, but we still can't find a window air conditioning unit. So,
Yikes.
We are gonna have basically a pajama party in our living room with the air conditioner.
Gotcha. I don't blame you.
Okay, you said you became aware of this decision to send a counter sniper unit to the Butler rally. You learned that on July 11th. Is that right?
I received a welcome email on the 11th.
Do you know who decided to send counter snipers to this event?
I do not know who decided to send us.
You said you received a notification. Who told you that you would be going to this event as a counter sniper?
Normally the team leader.
And who was that?
That was redacted.
Do you know why it was decided to send counter snipers to this event?
No.
Okay, pausing for just a minute. I have a question for you.
Wait.
Doesn't this bring up something that I never thought of before? That counter snipers have never been at his rallies before. And all of a sudden they decided to send a counter sniper team to this rally. Well, 2 teams. Is that not weird?
I don't know. I mean, I guess that would go to threat levels, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know.
I mean,
I've never thought about that before, that none of his other rallies had counter snipers there.
Right. Well, there was the plot by the Iranian, but they caught him on the 12th. So, maybe they had already set this up based on that intel.
Good point.
I don't know. That's my knee-jerk response to that.
And you know what? Impulse responses are generally the most truthful, and we always act on what we think of first. So
True.
It's when you sit back and you read stuff like that and you go, things that make you go,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's that other piece of information that I didn't have, that he was caught on the 12th. So I must have missed that somewhere along the line. But you're the expert in this, not me.
I don't know about expert.
Of everybody I personally know, if I have a question about what happened that day or the people involved, I know who I'm asking. And it's you. So you are
I'll try to find out if I don't know the answer anyway. Okay.
All right. What was your reaction to being assigned to this event as a counter sniper?
It's just another day.
It didn't strike you as significant to be assigned as a counter sniper to a former president?
No.
Did it raise any concerns in your mind?
No.
Did it cause you to plan differently or operate differently at this event than you would for previous events where it wasn't a former president that you were protecting?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Was the fact that you were assigned as a counter sniper to a former president event cause you to plan differently in any way or operate differently that day than you had in previous events?
No.
Okay, and to clarify, as far as you're aware, this was the first time that a counter sniper team was given to protect a former President Trump.
Correct.
Thank you. Now, in terms of counter sniper presence at the Butler rally, you said there were 2 teams of 2 each. Is that right?
Correct.
Were you the rifleman, in layman's terms, the shooter, or the observer? Or am I understanding that the layman's terms is spotter?
That's a really good question. At the Secret Service, on our counter sniper team, we operate as a shooter-shooter role. We don't operate within the shooter-spotter role, and that's very specific. So that if one of us was shot, the other could continue to fight.
So does that mean, was the other team shooter-shooter as well?
Correct.
Does that mean there were 4 counter snipers who were shooters at that event?
Correct.
With 4 separate weapons?
Correct.
Do you have different responsibilities from your partner? In other words, my understanding with the shooter-observer model is that you have different roles or responsibilities. But if both of you are shooters, you didn't have different responsibilities or roles.
Our roles when it comes to shooting are the same, but as far as like the advanced planning, that might fill a different role.
Does one report to the other in terms of you and your partner?
No.
Was there a counter sniper lead for all of the 4 counter snipers from Secret Service there that day?
Yes. Team lead.
And he was one of the 4 shooters? Snack time.
He was one of the 4 counter snipers, yes.
We've started doing this thing where we dump them all over the floor and then eat them like a puppy off the floor.
Okay.
And I'm trying to make sure that's why
if it makes you happy.
She started to put it over to her hand, and that one I was like this, because I'm like, doing that in our house is one thing when I know when the last time the floor was cleaned, but here, even though we're in a decent hotel, I don't like taking chances.
No, I don't blame you.
All right. Sorry, yes. Was he Hercules 1? He was part of Hercules 1.
He was part of Hercules 1.
And what was his role as the lead or responsibilities?
His roles and responsibilities as a leader to plan, pick our posts, and be the liaison between all assets.
Was there a counter sniper response team at this rally?
Yes.
And what were they responsible for?
Counter sniper response is a less than lethal option where if we spot anything suspicious, we can direct them to investigate further.
How many individuals were on the response team?
I don't recall. This guy's got some memory gaps.
I feel like at this point, if I'm remembering correctly, is when the people asking questions were starting to get pissed.
I think these were private. I don't think these were part of the public hearings.
Do you know roughly?
I'm sorry?
It's the next question. Do you know roughly?
Oh. Sorry. At least one.
No. How many people were on a team? At least one.
At least one.
Like the most. I don't Sorry, that answer made me laugh. How are you that dumb? I'm not trying to insult this man or his intelligence because he has skills that I will never possess. Yeah. However, when someone asks you how many people are on a team and you don't know who's on your team, well, at least one. Thank you, Captain Obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. At least one. Do you know where that person or people were positioned?
No.
Is it generally a roving position or do they have a post?
It can be. It's up to the team leader to decide where their best position would be. Or if that was roving, it would also be determined by him.
So correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that the responsibility of the response team is to, for lack of a better word, investigate any issues that the counter snipers observe. Is that a fair way to describe their role?
Yes.
And do you know if they were, again, for lack of a better word, activated or used that day? In other words, did the counter snipers ever identify something that they needed to the response team to go check out?
I can't recall.
Of course not. Would that go over the radio if that needed to be done?
It can, or via phone, if they're having communications issues with the radios.
You said that you don't recall where the response team was. Do you happen to know if they were ever to the 3 or 4 o'clock where the AGR building was?
I don't recall.
Okay, thank you. And now switching to your position at the rally, Hercules 2. Does that mean you were on the northern barn, on top of the barn that was closer to the AGR side?
Correct.
Okay, and so what was your clock position?
Our clock position was the 5 o'clock.
Was that the position that you and your partner had planned to be in?
That wasn't determined by us. That was determined by the team lead.
Right. And was that position your team lead had decided and planned for you to be in?
Correct.
In other words, that didn't change from the planning.
No.
Did you have a certain direction you were planning to be facing from your position?
No, we observe everything that we can see from that posting.
Meaning you had a 360-degree view.
If we had a 360-degree view, we observed 360 degrees. But I can't recall what we couldn't see off in like the 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock position. But we did the best we could to observe everything that we could see.
And again, to clarify, Hercules 1 was on the southern barn roof. Is that right?
Yes, Hercules 1 would have been at the 7 o'clock.
Do you know why those positions were chosen by the team lead?
No.
Do you know if any other positions were considered?
No, I do not.
And in terms of planning for the rally, I know you covered a little bit of this in your opening. Were you responsible for any planning aspects ahead of the rally?
No.
Did you rely on any information ahead of time?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Were you given any documents, for example, before the rally?
Yeah, I would have received our logistics and other paperwork to facilitate information regarding the event.
I'd like to hand you a document. I'm going to mark it Exhibit 1. Are you familiar with that document? Sorry, officer, did you say you're familiar with that document?
Yes, I'm familiar with this document.
When did you receive this?
I would have received this on the 12th.
July 12th?
July 12th.
So the day before the rally.
Correct.
Do you know who created it?
This is a document created by the team lead.
So this, and it's titled Site 2, Butler Farm Outdoor Rally, Bates 150. You said the team lead, redacted, created this.
Correct.
Can you speak generally about how you relied on this document when you were preparing for the rally?
Yeah, of course. This document is called our CS grids, and we use this to vector in CS response to an area that we deem suspicious. I had mentioned before, so we would tell them to flip it. Let's just say we had an issue in this quadrant here. We would tell them, hey, and they would be able to see that. Okay. That's the building listed on the Lakeside Barn, or as the Lakeside Barn, and then they could go over and investigate further.
Understood. Had you ever been to Butler before the 13th?
No.
Did anybody know where Butler is before the 13th? No. I'd like to talk about the perimeter of the site. Can you speak to how a security perimeter generally affects your responsibilities or duties, if at all?
It doesn't typically affect our responsibilities.
Do you scan, again, using layman's terms, do you scan for threats beyond the perimeter only, before the perimeter, or again, does it not factor into that action?
We observe everything we can see from our vantage point.
Were you told anything about outer perimeter that had been selected for the Butler rally site?
I can't recall. I don't think so.
Okay. Do you know who determined the perimeter?
No.
Or do you know if that was documented somewhere or anywhere?
I'm sorry?
Do you know if that was documented anywhere, the location of the perimeter?
No.
Can you speak to what, if at all, you were told about the AGR building before the rally?
When we conducted our walkthrough at the beginning of the day, the team lead points out where local assets are, typically where the local sniper support would be. And he pointed out I'm assuming LES is local law enforcement
Sniper.
sniper team in Exhibit 1 on the last page. They're listed as LES teams, and they are at the 11 o'clock and another team off of the 2 o'clock inside the AGR building. I couldn't remember if during the walkthrough he mentioned the LES team was going to be on or inside the AGR building, but it was expressed that the locals owned that building. Local support around and inside the building is what I mean when I say owned.
So with that knowledge, was it your understanding that the building would be secured by those local officers?
Correct.
Did you have any understanding of whether and by whom the roof of that building would be secured?
With locals in and around and a sniper team on it, I assumed the building was secured. We still observed that area, though.
Understood. And do you know who decided to assign that responsibility for that building to those local officers?
I do not know.
Do you know if that was documented anywhere?
I do not.
You just mentioned that you were scanning everywhere, including the AGR building. So is that fair to say, therefore, that the AGR building was one of your, again, for lack of a better term, area of responsibility to be scanning for threats?
Yeah, we scan everywhere that we can see, so sure.
And again, turning to Exhibit 1, you had mentioned the grid images.
Sure. I'd like to have Officer Witness go back to your last question to give some further explanation, because this is another one of those questions that calls for a nuanced answer to understand the interplay, if you will, between his role and locals. Sorry for the confusion. When we're up observing, if I see something that's outside of even if it were an established outer perimeter, we're still going to act in accordance with our policies and procedures to address any threat to any site. So even if it's outside of our specified areas of responsibility, if we can see it, we're going to address it.
Understood. Yeah, thank you for that. And turning to slide 4 in Exhibit 1, my understanding is that that's a northward view look of the AGR building. It says 2 o'clock, is that right?
Correct.
Was that roughly from your position? I'm not sure if this picture was taken from your barn or the southern barn. It looks like it may even have been taken from the southern barn. But is that roughly what your view was?
It's difficult to say because we were on a different rooftop than this one. On that same page, at grid coordinate between India and Juliet at number 20, you can see that purple circle with the white H. That designates my team roughly. A rough estimation of where we would be. Obviously, we're not going to be on the very edge of the rooftop. We're going to be on it. And those trees that you can see from the grid squares, Juliet to Golf, between 14 and 20, that angle changes as you move further to what would be the east on that rooftop where we were located.
Understood. Thank you. And like you just said, you were not limited to the security perimeter. You were certainly scanning for anything that might pop up or present a threat beyond the perimeter. And then clearly that included the AGR building. Is that right?
Correct. Even though it's secured, we still observe it.
Understood. Thank you. Did you have any discussions with the state or local law enforcement or counter snipers about the AGR building?
I don't recall having a conversation with locals.
Did you have any concerns about the AGR building, including any potential threats or vulnerabilities posed?
No.
And can you explain why that is? Why it wasn't concerning?
Because as mentioned before, the locals were around it and inside it and elevated with it.
Do you know if anyone else had expressed any concerns about the AGR building before the rally?
No.
And again, going back to your general responsibilities as a counter sniper, and again, this goes to the difference between in terms of sniper versus counter sniper. Is it fair to characterize your responsibility as within the site looking outwards for threats as opposed to looking for threats within the site and close to the protectee?
Could you say it again?
Sure. My understanding is that counter sniper is usually within a secure perimeter, relatively closer to the protectee, like you were on the barn looking farther out for threats, i.e. snipers, as opposing to looking inwards, such as the crowd. Is that right?
Typically, but like I said before, we're observing everything. So if we can see part of the crowd, we can still observe part of the crowd. And if we see something suspicious going on within a crowd, we could then launch our CS response using the grids document, Exhibit 1.
Understood. And were you facing a certain way for the majority of the time? From the time you posted up to that position until you came down?
I believe so. It would have been off to the 1 to 5 o'clock. But like I said before, still observing in just about 360 degrees.
Okay. And you mentioned the local law enforcement counter snipers. Do you know what their positions were?
I can't recall.
But I think you mentioned there were at least some in the AGR building.
Yeah, it was expressed that they would be in and around and elevated within the AGR building.
And did their presence in the AGR building at all affect what you did in terms of looking for threats on the AGR building?
No.
Okay, apologies if you said this before, but what time did you arrive at the Butler rally site?
I can't recall.
Did you arrive with the protectee?
No, we got there earlier than the protectee.
And where did you come from that morning?
Well, we started at the hotel and then went to breakfast and then stopped to get snacks along the way.
Where were you the night before? So that would be Friday night, the 12th.
At the hotel.
What did you do that night?
Caught up on some sleep.
Were you in the same hotel as your partner?
I believe so.
So when you arrived at the site, you mentioned you did walkthroughs. Is that right?
Correct.
Did you visit any areas outside the perimeter, including AGR?
No.
What time did you set up your position on the barn roof?
I can't recall an exact time.
Do you know if there's any point of comparison, for example? I imagine you were up there before the protectee took the stage.
Correct.
Do you have any other point of reference in terms of things that happened and when you were up there versus when you were still on the ground?
A reference point being like when the bolo was sent out?
Correct. Wait. Well, I imagine you were up there for that.
Correct.
Anything else that happened in terms of like the protectee arriving or anything before that give you some kind of frame of reference for how early you got up on the roof?
I'm sorry, no.
That's fine. I appreciate it. You had mentioned in your opening statement that you had I think you said an obstructed view of the AGR because of the trees. Can you describe and elaborate on that a little bit more? So how obstructed was the view of the AGR roof? You can use Exhibit 1 if you want.
Sure. Using that page 4, you can see where those trees are blocking view of the AGR building. You have to imagine that as you move further to the right, those trees basically block our obstruction all the way to the second story there at Grid Square, India 12.
So did you have visibility or line of sight to the position where Crooks ended up, where he took his shots?
I'm going to have to object to that question because you haven't questioned or asked my client if he ever saw Crooks, established where he was, and the trees are a prominent part of that. So if we could perhaps lay that foundation.
I have to go for just a hot second. I have to do mom duties.
Okay, I'll go back over here to chat and see what people are talking about.
Let me
Sorry, it's been a few minutes, guys.
and I don't even know who is in chat, so because I had to expand it so I could see it.
So if a body can't physically cover their client or can't move their client, they should be the client's bodyguards. Doesn't that mean they can't be a part of the security? I don't know. I don't know. If a person isn't fully trained on a piece of equipment, then they shouldn't be on that equipment. Agreed. So far, 16 pages. Bullshit. How many pages in this? Well, that's a good question. A couple of hundred. No, I think it's nearly 200 pages, but I think a lot of that's exhibits. That's why DEI is a huge part of this fiasco. I'm not saying they aren't good at what they are trained for, but they only be considered for positions they are qualified for. It's true. I didn't see one of his team. You mean by themselves? I don't know what that was in reference to, but yeah. I'm assuming that's a different conversation, King Bob. Okay. Bye, King Bob. I hope you're still here. Bye. Sorry, I missed it. Hey, JD fan. Jason. Yes, little baby squids running amok. The witness and lawyer sound a little feminine. They are doing references to hymns and misters. I saw there was one Ms. reference earlier, so I think they're being accurate to their gender.
Hello.
You're back.
I'm back. I had to do a wardrobe change, if you know what I mean.
Understood. I need to take a look at this. We are on page 43 of 167. Oh, brother. Hang on.
You know, it's I'm gonna open the chat on my my phone. So then, of course, it doesn't come up on my my live. So there we go. It doesn't come up on my. I just have to turn the volume down so we don't pause it. There we go. Because I'm making this because I'm on my laptop, so I have to make this like full screen so I can see it.
So I'm just trying to take a look at how far we have to go on this. Oh, it goes on and on and on.
You have to think this was about a 2-hour interview, right?
Right. Well, I don't know if people are getting bored or they want to keep going. I mean, I don't know how you're doing on time.
We can break
Oh,
this
boy.
up into two, like we can do a little bit more, and
Mhm.
then we can break it up into 2 different like live streams. Because it is a lot, but it's interesting to actually hear the process. At least it's interesting to me.
Right.
JD
Well, it's
fan.
interesting to me. I just wanted to get into the details of, what happened,
This
from
is
his perspective.
and I'm trying to
Hey,
think
Flash
of
fan.
which, like, knowing my memory from the site, if this was not the counter sniper team that was in all the pictures behind Trump. This was the other one that was off to, if you're looking at Trump, off to his right.
The ones we couldn't see.
Yeah, the one you couldn't see.
Well, I thought the shooter was to his right.
The opposite of the
Okay.
getting my lefts and my rights mixed up.
No, I understand. I still don't think I have my footing on where the 2 teams were. I know that there was one behind him, behind Trump.
It's when they start using the north, south, east, west. I'm like, I don't know what direction the fairgrounds faced, and like what direction the ADR building was to the to the stage, north, south, east, west. Y'all, Hey, Flash fan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So keep going, I guess. Where were we?
That's
I'm sorry.
I think I finished how early you got up on the roof. Top of the page.
Oh. Okay. I'm sorry. No.
That's fine. I appreciate it. You had mentioned in your opening statement that I think you had an obstructed view of the AGR because of the trees. Can you describe and elaborate on that a little bit more? So how obstructed was the view of the AGR roof? Can you use Exhibit 1 if you want? That's actually where I stopped.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Using that page 4, you can see where those trees, I think we did do this one, are blocking the view of the AGR building. You have to imagine that as you move further to the right, those trees basically block our obstruction all the way to the second story there at Grid Square, India 12.
So did you have visibility or line of sight to the position where Crooks ended up, where he took his shots?
Oh, I think we went through this objection too. I must have scrolled backwards. Okay.
Oh, I don't. No.
I was going to
yeah.
have to object to that. So, okay. I think after okay.
Do you know where Crooks ended up?
No.
No, you don't? Did you have any visibility to the far slope of the roof? In other words, that roof is a peak. The near slope to you sloped down towards the south, and the far slope on the other side sloped down to the north. Did you have a view of that far slope, sloping down towards the north?
I can't recall.
Okay. Roughly how much time that day when you were in position did you spend scanning or observing towards that AGR building?
A significant portion. I can't give it's not like I can go up there and time it.
And you described in your opening statements and hearing the shots fired, is that when you looked towards the AGR building, or you had already been looking in that direction in the immediate moments before you heard shots fired?
I had been in that direction because I saw the officer move from the AGR parking lot to the outer perimeter fence, and I was scanning in that generalized area. And yeah, we were observing that direction when we heard the shots ring out.
And you didn't see anyone on the roof after that?
That's correct.
Did you see anyone on the roof after that?
Right. Yes. As I said earlier, the local who came up after the fact, but he emerged from the trees, he had already been up there. I don't know how he got up.
But you didn't see Crooks or his body after he was shot on the roof from your position?
No.
No. Were you made aware of any threats in advance of this rally, either about the rally or about former President Trump?
No.
Did you have any concerns ahead of the rally?
No.
I'd like to shift gears and talk about communications. Can you describe what communications you had when you were in position on the barn?
Yes, we're using our handheld radios.
How many frequencies were you on?
I monitor 3 frequencies.
What were they?
I can't recall what they were off the top of my head.
Do you routinely use common frequencies?
Yes.
What are they?
To my understanding, these are all encrypted transmissions, and these numbers are likely classified, and I don't believe it's appropriate for him to go down that path.
Absolutely. No, we don't want any classified information. Let me clarify it. Certainly no classified information. I'm just trying to understand if there was a call sign, just channel for the radio frequencies or anything like that you frequently use.
We have call signs for frequencies that we typically use, yeah. Mr. Counsel, I guess we're in a tough spot here. I respect the question and understand the need to ask it, but we are here and we're defined by my client's role, and we have some very serious concerns that we might be compromising my client's position, the service, and perhaps even protectees by getting into that level of detail as to call signs, what a particular call sign means, what a code word might mean, and I would take the position that is likely all classified information, and we simply cannot be in a position where my client in any way compromises the operation of the service. And so we are going to decline to answer that specific question. But questions like that, we absolutely must refrain from responding to, even though my client may possess the details, which in some instances he does. But, I have to look out for the long-term consequences for my client, and I don't want any answers he gives here to have potential repercussions for him with the service because we somehow gave up information that was not appropriate to be given.
Mr. Agency Counsel.
Agency Counsel, here, Secret Service, we agree here. I am not sure if the call signs at this point will even further the story or narrative or discussion. I think we can continue to provide the information without divulging that at this point.
Sure. And to clarify, we're interested in which radio, maybe frequency is not the right term. Maybe channels is more appropriate. We were trying to determine who was on different. Our understanding is there were different radio channels with different types of law enforcement. For example, tactical channels, post-standard channels, etc. Is that something you can speak to about which, again, channel or frequency that you were on?
I think the furthest we can go safely would be for my client to identify the primary channel for him and his responsibilities and role and leave it at that. Because I assure you, even though I don't know the answer, I'm certain that he doesn't know which team members from which teams were assigned and on what frequencies. He just knows the 3 frequencies that were available to him and his primary focus to the one that he was responsible for to accomplish his mission. And beyond that, we're getting into operations, and I am certainly unprepared to go into that at this phase.
Sure. So again, we will reiterate the caveat that you shouldn't address anything that's classified. I don't think we're asking for that or getting at that. You are monitoring different channels depending on the individuals that we've spoken to. There have been people monitoring between 1 and 3 channels at a time. We want to understand what information you were able to obtain during your time there. So that means we want to understand the number of channels so we know if you're on the same channel as locals, if you're on the same channel as other counter snipers, or if you're on channels where you can hear the CAT team or others. So we want to know what you can hear and how that is delineated and try to answer that without triggering any of your concerns. And your counsel has raised.
Okay, thank you for the clarity. I didn't have local channels. I only had interagency channels between TAC teams. the tactical teams, the counter assault team, and additional units on the ground, like post standers, like you had mentioned. And those 3 channels allow me to do that.
And all of those roles you just described, those are all Secret Service personnel you're referring to that were on the radio with you.
Correct.
So you didn't have any radio connection with local law enforcement or state law enforcement.
Correct.
On our channels, that's not normal.
Oh.
Oh, wait. Okay, is that
so-
sorry, I skipped a line.
Okay, yeah. On our channels, that's not normal.
Okay, I'm going to hand you another document. This is marked Exhibit 2. This is a document called Counter Snipers CS Team Overview, Responsibilities and Qualifications. I don't believe it has a Bates number. Exhibit 2 marked for identification.
What happened?
I think we
Went
skipped.
too far. Okay.
Yeah.
We have not been provided this document in preparation for the testimony here today, and I reserve the right to request a break so that we can examine it. Because if you have in-depth questions about the roles, our focus was on the facts of the case, not a training document he may have seen a year ago or in 2017, what have you. So with that qualification, we can proceed.
No, I appreciate it. And in fact, my first question was going to be, are you familiar with this document?
I understand that we have our policy book, but I haven't seen this in a long, long time.
Okay, fair enough. Can you turn to page 3 under the section called CS Communication?
Give us a moment.
Sure.
Your question, sir?
On page 3, section CS Communications, it says in the first paragraph there, in that section, CS will also maintain communications with any local and federal tactical units that are participating in the visit or event. Do you see that? Oops.
Yes.
And understanding that this has been a while since you've seen this policy or guidance document, do you take that to mean you either you or someone within Counter Snipers for the Secret Service at the time of the event should have had radio connection to the local law enforcement?
That will also come down to with the CS Advance being the liaison between local assets and any other entity that are offering tactical support. They'll be the liaison with them and have communications with them. If not with a radio, then a cell phone number. But to ease confusion, when we arrive, it's typically one point of contact. And for simplicity, we leave that point of contact as the Counter Sniper team lead.
Understood. Thanks. Throughout that day, did you have any difficulties or challenges communicating, whether it was on the radio or cell phone or otherwise? I know you mentioned the issue with the cell service getting to the hospital, but before shots fired, did you have any issues with communication in any way?
With my radio position, sometimes, even being in close proximity to the same radio, like my partner, if I'm close to him, like our radio frequencies will sometimes cancel out and he will receive a message, but I won't receive it, even though I'm 2 feet from him. Then also the orientation of the antenna can affect the radio signal. And then I can't recall if my cell service dropped while I was up on the roof. I just know that I didn't have cell service when I came down from the roof. To assist my client further on that answer, to elaborate for you, you have the functionality issues with the portable radios and the directional antennas, but imposed on top of that, because of the mountainous region, the system can have dead spots where they simply would not get a signal, no matter what position the radio would be in. So there's sort of a 2-in-1 problem built in there to make you aware of.
And shifting gears again, in terms of a suspicious person report, I understand that you have sent out the message about the locals monitoring something at the 3 o'clock. Did you know what that was they were looking into? She emptied her suitcase and is now pushing it around the room.
It makes her happy.
So her suitcase was behind my computer in front of me, so I couldn't see what she was doing. And all of a sudden, she's like on her hands and knees doing a bear crawl. pushing her suitcase around, and it's still open. It's just there's nothing in it.
Okay. It's just like any other government agency, they went to, and then DEI hires became the accepted practice. Yeah, Roy. Good. I think it's already compromised. Okay, I guess Flash Fan left, or I guess he's listening. Two awesome dogs. Hello, Blueberry or Papa Smurf, aka Yamaha Biker. Okay, I still don't know what this is about, and I know it's an inside joke, so I'm just okay. I'll figure it out.
We're using Temu radios.
Temu, absolutely. Yes, sponsored by Temu. Okay, where
16.
16. Okay, no.
So were you aware of a suspicious person at any point that day?
No, other than the bolo coming out. But we tried to observe and find them, but we couldn't. So we didn't see anything that even matched something close to his description.
Understood. I'm going to hand you another exhibit. Are we on 3? So exhibit 3 marked for identification purposes.
Got it.
So this exhibit is 2 pages. This appears to be an email. It's I'm assuming that's date stamped.
Bates. No, that's the official court numbering for exhibits is called Bates.
Okay, it's Bates stamped 547. The second page is just a zoomed in version. I know it's very difficult to read that first page, that text at the top. But if you go to the second page, hopefully you'll be able to read the zoomed in text. It looks like it's an email that was sent with text and pictures. It looks like it's sent at 5:53 p.m. on the 13th. Does that look right?
Yes.
You had mentioned earlier, I think, receiving an email. Is this the email that you were referring to that you received?
Correct.
So it sounds like you did receive this at 5:53. Is that time correct?
Correct.
And this is the email that says kid learning that possibly may have meant to have been something else, like learning, leaning, or lurking, but it says kid learning around building we are in. AGI, I believe it is. I did see him with a rangefinder looking towards stage, FYI. If you want to notify SS snipers to look out, I lost sight of him with the photos. Do you know who else received it?
That would have been all counter sniper teams at the event. That would have been Hercules teams.
Gotcha. Just the Secret Service counter sniper teams.
Correct.
And what?
If I may, before you proceed, I think this is important because we're now getting into a dynamic timeline. And you need to understand that the moment this information came to my client and his partner, they immediately began blank. In addition to the scopes, they had binoculars and whatnot. And so they immediately began searching anywhere for this individual in an effort to attempt to identify him. So they took every reasonable step that they possibly could to follow up on this bolo. But time gets compressed at this point, and there's not a lot of time. And my client never did, or even his partner were able to locate Mr. Crooks.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So in response to this, and now get your butt over here, please. Thank you. You just spilled my water all over the floor, and now you're gonna.
She's revolting.
It'll be fun today. You say hi? Baby squid sighting. Yeah, I appreciate that. So in response to this bolo, did you direct your attention towards that again? Roughly 3 o'clock area.
Oh. What did I do? Okay. We didn't.
22.
The bolo didn't narrow our field of view or our area of responsibility because it said that they lost him or they lost sight of him. taking it to mean that he could be anywhere because he left the area, or this is important because, wait, oh, no, or, sorry, that they observed him in, so we continue to observe everywhere, the entire site. We still looked in that area because it was part of our area of responsibility, but because someone had observed him and lost him, it doesn't mean that he's still in that same spot because they would still see him. They wouldn't have said that they lost him.
Understood. So after that moment, they received this email at 5:53. You weren't solely directing your attention at the 3 o'clock area.
Correct. Instead, we focused our attention on looking for an individual that matched the description at anywhere within our observable area.
I see. That's helpful. Thank you. Did you observe anyone in the general area of the 3 o'clock that you thought that might meet the description?
No.
You didn't receive any other information over the radio or email or text or otherwise about a follow-up on that suspicious person or anything else happening at the 3 o'clock?
No.
And apologies if you already answered this. How long, or sorry, which direction were you facing when the shots were fired?
We were facing the AGR building in that general area. I can't recall exactly what, but it was the general area of the AGR building.
And how long before shots were fired were you facing in that direction?
The majority of the time.
But, I mean, how many minutes?
I don't know.
Because we just...
I've got to interrupt. My client can't quantify this because he's not watching his wristwatch as he looks north, south, east, west. And so this is a dynamic situation. And once we're aware the protectee is 5 minutes out, has arrived, what have you, it's a constant scanning function. So while he may concentrate a little bit of the time over at the AGR from his vantage point, which is why he's there, he's focusing on everything because 1 threat, 2 threats, 10 threats, we don't know. And so I don't think it's fair to my client to try to pin him down that, he watched the AGR for 45 seconds, took a break, and then looked over at 9 o'clock. It just doesn't work that way.
No, fair enough. And I appreciate it. Any estimate you can give is helpful, but we established you weren't looking entirely at the AGR building between that 5:53 email and shots fired. I believe 6:11, but you were looking in that direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, understood. Thank you. You didn't receive any reports about anyone on the roof of the building or anyone aimed at the AGR building?
Correct.
At any point before shots were fired, were you aware of any discussions or deliberations about whether to take former President Trump off the stage?
No.
Okay, so now at shots fired, you covered a lot of this in your opening statement, but could you elaborate a little bit more about what happened? Do you remember the number of shots you heard? Were you able to count?
No, I wasn't able to count, but it seemed endless.
Endless. Could you tell what direction they were coming from?
I couldn't pinpoint a direction like location where they were coming from, but I knew the generalized area was the AGR building.
Sorry, what was that at the end?
Just like general, like area. I wasn't even sure if it was the AGR building itself. It could have been beyond it because I didn't hear a report from a weapon. It sounded honestly like it was suppressed. Bingo. Like it had a suppressor on it because it wasn't like a loud boom that you would expect being 200 yards away. It was muffled.
Understood. Thank you. And I think you said in your opening statement that you, in response to those shots fired, began looking to try to find the source of the fires. Is that right?
When I heard the shots fired, when I logically assumed that it was shots fired, I immediately went to my radio to start emergency action for the shift. But then as soon as I was finished with my radio transmission, I continued observing in that area, went right back to my weapon.
Did you ever fire your weapon that day?
No.
At any time, Did you observe another Secret Service counter sniper fire their weapon?
No, I did not observe. I didn't see it happen.
Since then, have you received confirmation that a Secret Service counter sniper did fire their weapon and hit crooks?
Yes, I heard that one of our teams, Hercules 1, engaged the threat and just engaged the threat. Mr. Oh, okay, I guess this is local. Just so you know, you probably sensed a little trepidation on the part of my client. I want to be clear that we prepped. He's here today to talk about the events leading up to that day, what he knows firsthand. And one of the instructions actually I gave him when he and I first met was stay away from the post, the Times, social media, etc., because he did not want to cloud his memory with later learned facts. So asking about what one of the other CS units did and so forth, information after the fact that he really doesn't have firsthand knowledge of. And so my hope was we would limit the questioning to the actual day of the event and the steps that he took and participated in there. But that's why you got the unsteady answer.
Absolutely. Fair enough. And we're not interested in, what you learned from social media, but did you receive any kind of official confirmation about whether there was a Secret Service officer involved shooting?
I did not know at the time.
Have you since, again, official confirmation of any kind?
Yes.
And what did you learn?
I learned that Hercules 1 team member successfully engaged the threat.
And what was that team member's name?
Redacted.
Thank you. At any point, did you observe, see, hear any other law enforcement fire their weapon that day?
I can't recall in the moment. I couldn't recall. There was one local tactical SWAT entity on the ground, just maybe 10 yards from where we were with local or law enforcement, who shot in the general direction of the AGR building. I can't recall how many rounds he fired, but it was after the initial volley from the AGR building. There was a lull, and then he had engaged something at the AGR building. I couldn't see what it even was through the trees. I want to interject at this point because this is a critical moment for my client. We were all very fortunate that President Trump was not more seriously injured. Equally so, we're very fortunate my client was not injured or killed. And you had to listen carefully to his testimony earlier. But the shooter, who he did not know where it was or who it was, began firing upon him and his partner. And if you listened carefully, those rounds came between them. And unless you've ever had rounds winging by your head, it's an experience that you don't want to have and a position you don't want to be in. So now we're getting into that moment for him. And I want everybody here to understand his presence of mind at that point, because as he said earlier, he thought Hercules 2 was struck because Hercules 2 went back a little bit. Although my client didn't say it, Hercules 2 went back and initially he thought he was hit. And so he still doesn't know where the threat is, how many there are, etc. So this is very, very dynamic, tenths of a second evolving event. And and I ask you to take that into consideration as you hear my client's answers to the questions you are putting forth.
Yes, and thank you for that. And we do have specific questions about the information you relay. That's very helpful, and we'll ask about that. Thanks. Yes, and thank you again. We understand it was difficult and tense, to say the least. So we appreciate anything you can recall. Is there anything else you can recall about that local officer who fired, for example, his position?
I'm thinking, let me just look. Yeah, I just want to see if there would be a better photo in here. There isn't a really good photo of where he would be, but maybe on page 4.
Sorry, of Exhibit 1?
Yes, Exhibit 1, page 4, probably in Lima to Kilo, 9 to maybe 13, there was a local SWAT officer in that area, and there was a truck that they were working out of at Kilo 6, where that bend in the corner of the fence is for the perimeter of the venue. Yeah, like Kilo 6 and 7. They were working out of that truck, but he positioned himself a little bit further off from it. And when the events transpired, when we heard the shots fired, he moved further towards like Lima 20 on page 4. So he kind of moved closer to us and then shot after there was a lull.
And sorry, go ahead.
And to understand at this point now, both my clients or redacted they don't know how many attackers there may be, and they're continuing to hear the shots. They don't know what the local sniper knew or did not know, whether he had actually acquired a target. He had no knowledge. So this is still a threat moment because he hasn't yet identified crooks or any other bad actors, so to speak. And so we can't speak for what they were shooting at, what they missed or hit. We don't know. But you do need to be aware that one of the local sniper teams did fire. And just for clarification, I don't know if it was a sniper team or if it was involved with a sniper team, but he was definitely a local SWAT guy with an LES, not a long precision bolt gun that a sniper would typically carry.
Okay, a LES is the type of weapon. I don't know what they're actually referring to, but with that designation, but
Right.
That's the, okay, so LES is a weapon. That's good to know. Understood, and thanks for the clarification. And again, going to the position that you saw him in, helpful to hear about the placement on the grid on Exhibit 1 here. But is there any frame of reference in terms of where he was in relation to the stage or any other landmarks such as the bleachers that you recall?
They would have been behind the bleachers with the vehicle, and he would have been at the need of, if you can see the dirt roadway on that same page, we would put like a tent in that area. He was basically at the end of that tent, basically at the end of that roadway right there.
That's where he was when he fired?
I think he moved over. It's really hard to recall. Wait, I think he moved closer to our position as he was shooting. He kind of like moved over. It's really hard to recall that exact moment because you have to imagine, like, I don't even know that the initial assailant is down, but I can't see that area where the shots rang out from, and I'm scanning for a second threat because if this is a coordinated attack, then that's what I need to be prepared for, not the guy you can't see. It's the next guy who's following up.
Understood. And I totally understand that it was kind of a fog of war and difficult to determine what's happening. And I understand that you weren't focusing on local law enforcement. So I think I know the answer to the question I'm about to ask, but just to clarify, did you have any understanding of what the effect his shot had? In other words, do you know if he neutralized crooks or hit him?
I have no idea.
Okay, fair enough. Have you since learned anything else about that, again, through official confirmation or otherwise?
No. Okay,
I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues now. I appreciate you being here and answering our questions.
Of course. Do you want to pause there?
Yeah.
A little bit over halfway. It's a long testimony. I've got it. Where's my bookmarks? So, wow. Like, to me, ooh, we're big. Sorry, guys, didn't mean to scare you.
Sorry, remember, I'm in a hotel room. I did not grab a hairdryer or.
We'll go a little smaller.
Like, really zoomed in on those wrinkles there. Thank you.
To me, the muffled or the what he called suppressed shots are interesting because, I'm not sure that would have been picked up by all the devices.
That's true. And in the weapon that they showed, if I'm getting my two events mixed up, but they said it was an AR-15. They never said anything about having extra. Because in order to get a suppressor, you need to apply for one. And it took my brother-in-law about 2 years, maybe longer, between the time he applied and the time he got his permit for one. So if it truly was suppressed, they have more information than they're telling us.
Right. Or they're telling us more information now.
Or he could just be not that he's not remembering correctly, but from his point of view and his vantage point, and the trees that were obscuring it could mess with the sound too. So it may not have even been suppressed. It just sounded like it from his vantage point.
Right.
Plain devil's advocate.
Right. But I mean, he's saying he's hearing a whizzing going by his left, and his partner saying it's going to his right. So that was like it was coming right down the middle of them.
That's freaky. Like,
yeah, because they're not shooting at the president. They're shooting at the snipers.
Either that or you're a really bad shot.
Well, okay.
I mean, there's two options there. But the fact that the president was actually hit means that whoever, and they say it's crooks, but I just keep an open mind of whoever shot actually hit his ear had he not turned his head.
Mm-hmm.
So it, take that with a, giant grain of salt. But whether he was that bad of a shot or he just wanted to take out the snipers and get attention.
Let's see. It's recently come out, medical examiner, that there was only one shot wound, and the locals shot one of them. They hit the butt area of the rock. Oh, Bongino. Well, we won't know, will we? Won't have any way of finding out. Oh, losing it here. Sorry. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And I understand,
from what I understand,
national security, but
from what I understand, his teeth were knocked out.
Weird.
I mean, that was in one of the reports that I came across. So I'm like, it's.
But teeth were knocked out then, or he just prior to, and they were healed. So there's
I don't think it was prior to. It was
when they give more information.
It's part of the scene.
When they give more information, it just makes me ask more questions.
Right. This is the craziness.
Sound like a conspiracy theorist, but when you're only given half the information, your brain automatically fills in the rest. It's just what our brain does. And my brain comes up with all this stuff, knowing a little bit about rifles. I'm not a weapons expert by any means, but we have some things that are a range of 2,000 meters. So it's not unusual for Mr. Squid and I to talk about long range distances or, watch videos from snipers. So with some background on it, the more I'm asking questions and the more they're giving out little bits of information here and there, it just makes me question things because something doesn't smell right. Something's fishy.
That's strange.
It does work. I think I got my Stream Deck to work. But no, that's welcome to the dark side, because that's, I've never wanted to be a conspiracy person. I didn't. I just keep ending up here.
However, in the last 4 years, people who've been called conspiracy theorists are like up 10-0. So
right.
yeah.
No, I get it, and I like the idea that you investigate conspiracy investigators.
Yeah, in my mind, conspiracy theorists are the one who come up with a conclusion and just stick with that conclusion, and their conclusion never evolves based on changing information. So an investigator, you get information, you come up with a certain conclusion, you get more information, and you're able to change your view
Mhm.
and your perspective.
So, was there anything so far that really stuck out to you?
The suppressed, and the fact that the team lead was supposed to be the liaison. So I'd be very interested in what that team leader had to say. Because if he said he was supposed to be the liaison, or did he put it on somebody else? Because they had to interview him too, and because
it's on the list. It's on the list that we have.
So after this one, I'd be very interested to see what he had to say, and see if everything that this guy said was the team leader's responsibility, if the team leader actually did, or he said it was somebody else's responsibility. So
right.
I'd be very interested to see how these two testimonies compare. Flash fan. She's the one doing all the investigations. I'm just giving my opinion based on the information that she gives me. Because y'all know that I suck at figuring things out. I just can read something and try to come to, not always, a logical conclusion based on the information that I'm provided. But
this is based on this committee. I mean, they're doing the investigation here. I'm just reading the findings.
I never would have figured out where to look for these.
Oh.
like I know Congress's website as far as looking up bills, but that's it. Right. And I can read through bills, but that's the only thing in Congress that I know where to find. Other than that, it's I wouldn't know where to find these. So when you get them, and it's
I'll try to put a link in the description, so if anybody wants to go and read ahead or do their own analysis.
And here's my other thing, and you can tell me what you think about this, but by reading through these on YouTube and getting a video basically recording of reading through these, you're providing an outlet for lots of other people who never would have otherwise realized that these even existed. So someone who doesn't like me, who doesn't know where to look for these, but kind of wants to know, it's you're providing an excellent, getting this information out to more people, because I think part of the reasons that they don't tell us things, but they put it all in these reports, is they never expect anybody to go through and actually read these reports, because they're long and sometimes boring. They're more fun when you're reading them with friends, but these are tedious reports and transcripts, and you don't expect anybody to actually go through and read them, because that takes effort and time, and everybody's wanting the quick news. You don't want to take the time to read the finer details.
Thank you, Flash fan.
Well,
the truth, that I don't know if I'm sharing the truth. I'm just sharing what's out there.
Someone's opinion based on, or someone's facts of what they remember and what their job was supposed to be. Whether that's the actual truth or not of what was supposed to happen.
Roy, I think that's close. I'd have to go back and look for the exact number. I want to say it was within 200 yards.
So not a hard shot.
No.
I
I
mean,
mean, I could
angle
probably
wasn't,
pull that off.
but
And you don't want to see me try.
if it
Uh,
wasn't to get me yeeted off of YouTube, I have a picture of me shooting at 100 yards, and I was able to hit the target with not an issue shooting a 300 blackout.
yeah.
So, like, 148 yards is what General said.
Thank you, General.
And I don't know if that accounts for like just the distance. So when they say 148 yards, does that account for just the distance from President Trump to the AGR building, or is that literally a laser pointer from the top of the roof to the stage?
No, don't make me be a sniper, please. Please no. So,
One of Mr. Squid's friends was a Marine Corps sniper, so
oh really?
that's where having a little bit of insight into some of these things, because I
Mhm.
can ask Mr. Squid, and if he doesn't know, he knows somebody who does
Right.
and forwards questions.
Oh, that'd be fun. Well, if his friend ever wants to come on and talk about it, maybe. Okay.
His friend is like, Mr. Squid is very like, keeps his work people and his private people separate. So
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, I have
Well, they
very
don't have
good
to come on screen.
Well, yeah.
I wouldn't. It would just be nice to have somebody. That's why I like working with Roy. Because he has the experience in it. He can kind of explain things to me. So
That's
he's a
always
pretty good
helpful.
resource.
And I don't claim to ever be a weapons expert. I just know what I know and can infer based on what I know some things that might be a harder shot. But, because with
Mhm.
a shot like that, you have to take into account wind, the person actually talking and moving,
Sure.
like the angle of the shot. Because it's one thing when we go shooting at the range, we generally shoot straight. We don't
Right.
shoot with downward angle. That's not a very common thing. You would see it just a shooting range.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yes, Heidi. I try to share the documentation. I try to share as much information as I can. And I think the thing about the testimonies is that you get, the talking heads come out first and they kind of have a narrative. And then to me, some of these testimonies are contrary to what they shared. So scratch a little deeper.
Flash fan, I definitely no. Not even
Fair enough,
close.
Roy.
No. No, I am by no means a weapons expert. I just know what I know, and like a shot. You think of a projectile, like if you were to throw somebody. Like I took physics class. Like you know, you think a projectile when you throw like a plastic cover, it's affected by its shape, the weather, the humidity, like it the speed at which it's flying. Like everything is when you take a shot like that, you have to take into account all these other things. And although it's not super hard, it's still you need a little bit of experience with that. And Crooks doesn't strike me as the person who did. Like, maybe shooting from like here to the TV, like the fact that it's on my level, but shooting at a downward angle like that
Mhm.
takes a little bit more, in my opinion, would take a little bit more of a, wind factor into account because you have a level change. So
Who's a Republican? What is a Republican?
what is a Republican now compared to what a Republican used to be as far as
Right.
like beliefs?
Right.
Because I would like to think that I'm a libertarian, but without the like off the deep ends, like total anarchy kind of, total anarchy kind of attitude sometimes.
Right. Well, you know, when it comes to crooks and also Ruth, term that comes to mind is useful idiots. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Well, and that's the thing is I didn't know if going back to if anybody still even wants to go into this, or do they want to switch gears to Ruth? I mean, I'm flexible. I can navigate around. I mean, I'm saving all these documents. We can go back over it anytime. And if anybody else, like I said, wants to dig into it, they can.
And personally, I would like to do these before we get into Ruth, because I'm thinking that one never would have happened if the first one didn't. So this Ruth and the golf course never would have even been a thing if crooks hadn't tried first.
So you think it's a dog whistle?
Kind of. Like, not so much like more like he tried. I know there's failures in the Secret Service. Let's see if I can do it.
Right.
Because crooks exposed all these failures, and everybody knows the government is slow as crap to fix anything and never really actually fixes anything. They just point out failures, but they don't really ever do anything to fix the problem.
Well, my prediction is the collateral damage perimeter is going to get bigger. And that scares me because if using a pew pew doesn't work, maybe a boom boom does. I mean, or there's, a bio agent of some sort. I mean, if somebody's seeing this happen and they're saying, okay, well, those two guys couldn't do it, so I'm just going to do this instead, whether it's a useful idiot or something worse, that to me is where we're headed.
Yeah. So Mr. Squid just texted me. He's at our house and was actually able to text me, which means we have cell phone service.
Yay, that's great. No power though.
No power, but like no power is one thing, but when you have no power and no cell service and you can't communicate with anybody, and like you have your device charged, but your device is useless, it's like,
oh, sure.
Okay, why do I have these chargers if I can't use them? Exactly.
It's like no cell service, no power. You can't be without both. It's terrible.
I mean, because at least with like no power, I can use like mobile hotspot for my computer. I can use my phone to connect other things and do something.
Yeah.
Because you can only, like, what did we do before the internet? Like, what did I do before the? Oh yeah, I was a kid, so like I played. But as an adult, what did I do?
There was a time before the internet.
Hey Roy, as an adult who existed before the internet, what did y'all do? Because I was a child, so like we just played. Like yeah, Celestial Forest. We went out and spent a generators. He had to drive around and call different places. He had to drive to South Carolina. So like I've never been the conspiracy theory, like I've never been the grifting type. But at this point, like we've spent a good, between the car and everything with the hurricane, a good $3,000 in the last week and a half.
Right.
And like that was not on the bingo card. Like one expense, a couple of paychecks, and then another expense and a couple of paychecks, and then another, that's one thing. But when it's like you should see some of my house. Like I am in some regards But we talked about getting a generator after the last hurricane, and then just never did. Like, yes, Flash fan, they still have landlines, but they're a new thing that some Gen Z and Gen Alpha are discovering. I saw a TikTok the other day where this woman was like, there's a phone attached to the wall, and it was like a stitch, and he was like, a landline? Jason, I'm not Amish.
No,
And even
you.
Amish are more prepared for having no electricity than we are. Like they're used to it. So they have gas lamps and, you know, all the things that you would need when you don't have electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And good thing is we still have water. So some people that are on a well or on a community well, that is pumped with electricity, and they don't have water either. Like, at least we have water.
That's good.
I can't really complain about that one.
Yeah.
And I deployed a couple of times, so I'm used to taking a cold shower. So if I have to take a cold shower, I don't care, as long as I get a shower.
Must be nice. I would not be able to make that compromise. I'd be like, I'll stink. I don't care. I'm not taking a cold shower.
Oh, yeah.
It just kept making children.
Before we left our house yesterday, I cooked 2 pounds of bacon that were in the fridge that I knew wouldn't freeze in our deep freezer, because like it would just warm up the deep freezer. So I cooked it. I heated up the Blackstone yesterday, and I cooked all the stuff, all the meat in the refrigerator that I knew wouldn't thaw again or wouldn't freeze again. So I'm like, before this goes bad, let me just cook it.
Right.
David. Oh my God. In the old days, they just kept making children.
Mm-hmm. Keeps you warm.
2 people's body heat is better than 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, David. So my snack today is bacon. So no sugar, bacon.
I was like, is that bacon? Okay, on the screen it looks like bacon. In my dark mode, I'm like, I don't know what that is.
I'm really hoping the ice cream that I bought before on Wednesday is still frozen. I'm really hoping our deep freezer is still frozen. So.
Yep. Well, I haven't had a landline in forever.
I haven't had a landline since I lived with my parents. I mean, my dad still has a landline. You know.
Well, I'm gonna, I guess, probably shut it down. Are you? What's going on with you guys?
We are spending another night here, but I don't know what we are doing after that. We're looking for a window air conditioning unit so that we can put it in our living room and at least like have a giant camp out in our living room. So we're doing better than some, because some people have like you. I sent you some of the pictures of like trees on cars. That was a really nice truck too.
Ouch.
That was a really nice truck. It was I want to say a 2022 or 2023. Like it was a really nice truck, and now it's no longer. I think it's totaled. But like trees on houses, like we got lucky. But just because we got lucky doesn't mean we got luckier than our neighbors. But just because we got luckier than our neighbors doesn't mean we got it good, you know.
God, can y'all hear that? Sounds like a fighter jet flying over. Holy crap. Well, I'm sure it's already gone, but I'm still hearing it. That's not a regular plane.
That was my neighbor. That was like
about to crash. Holy crap.
I can see their driveway from my front door, and that's what I like. I saw it, and I was like, I had to get closer because I didn't really believe what I was seeing. But yeah, down the street, like I could go out to the end of my driveway and see a tree on a pickup truck, and this tree had to be like 100 feet tall. Like these are not small trees. This is a neighborhood from the 60s of pine trees. So these are not tall, or, you know, these are not like tiny little trees. They're a good 10 to 12 inches in diameter, if not more. And luckily our trees stayed put. Some of the branches, like I have to call my landlord. She's in Florida right now. They just got back from a cruise. Luckily they got back after Hurricane Helene came through. So, but we have one branch that like I won't let the little play under that tree until that branch gets taken care of, because it's about, I want to say 4 to 5 inches thick, and it's hanging by like, you know, this. It's hanging by like tiny little.
Shoot. It sounds like we're getting invaded. I mean, jets circling around overhead. Okay.
Celestia, of course, we are
What did I
near.
say? What did I say?
I didn't do it.
It's really loud. I can't believe you guys can't hear it. Okay.
Hear it.
Well,
So
have fun.
we'll have to
Have fun
plan
in the
another
hotel.
one of these soon. Hopefully, when I get power back and I'm in my own house. You know,
Yeah.
If
I'll
not,
try to plan a little bit better, and maybe we can just Saturday afternoons,
okay.
something like that. You like to take the weekends off. I forgot.
No, I usually take the weekends off of my own stuff. Like I have no problem doing stuff. I don't like to plan something for me on the weekends. That way I don't have to like, you know, it's a day off for me. Because coming on here and reading with you, at the end of the day, you're the one doing all the finding and like the setting up and stuff. I'm just popping on here and reading. That's easy. You're doing the brunt, you know, the hard work. So it's one thing for me to like. Sunday nights are usually good for when I want to do a stream, and that's usually just a, hey, I'm bored, keep me out of my kitchen, talk to me.
Keep me from snacking.
That's pretty much what it is on Sunday nights. But I have to get going because the little dumped an entire container of those little puff things all over the a little kitchen area in here. So, you know.
All right, Jason.
I gotta go clean.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you for stopping by. Guess we'll see you in the tubes.
See ya.
Bye.